like I mentioned earlier, this is our second session for tonight with Paul Young.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'm going to present how to automate SQL code tests. So this usually, well, it's, the scenario is that you work with SQL code, and you at least have 5 different versions where you have your code to be compatible. I guess I can make it bigger. So every time you write code on, let's say, on SQL 2016, and then you have to test that your code is either backward compatible with previous versions or forward compatible with newer versions. And in this case, we're testing SQL 2012 all the way to SQL 2019. And if you manually have to do it, that means you have to create your stored procedure or run your query on each version, and you must have each version installed somewhere, and you have to test it one by one. So it's time consuming. So what you can do is automate it. So what you're going to see is how to automate it, and all the code is in GitHub, so you can download it if you want. And I guess I can show you what the code is. So it's in GitHub, and then this is the link, and you will see all the files I'm going to use for this solution. So I'm going to start with Azure DevOps, which, so here. So on Azure DevOps, you will have a project. So I already created, but I'll start from the beginning. And in this project, it has the advantage of DevOps is that you have source control. So you have all your repos. So all the files that you saw on GitHub are all over here. So I already created my project, and so I won't go to all the steps how to create a project. But if you go to this file that said add demo resources, it gives you all the scripts, all the steps of how to create the project and all the resources that you need in Azure in command line. So you just run the commands, and it will create everything and your DevOps project. So I already created. So after you run all the commands, you will have a project like this, and you will have all the files here in source control. So every time you check in your code, it will execute a pipeline. So one advantage of Azure DevOps is everything is managed for you. So it's a cloud solution, but you don't have to be, or your automated tasks are not necessarily on the cloud. You can also automate on-premise tasks with on-premise agents. But in this scenario, I'm using the cloud, so I'm using Azure to run the agent and install the VMs. So the pipeline is a sequence of tasks, and then I have one here. And then, as you notice, there is one that failed. I'll show you why it failed, but you will see that I run it 4 times. And then I'll show you, for example, this one. So, and it will do a sequence of tasks. and then I'm showing you the end result. So the end result is testing your code and how you see the results. But then later we'll dive into each one of the components. But just to give you an overview, so this is your pipeline, and all these are your tasks. So one of the tasks is install the VMs. We'll talk about that later. And one of the output is, so I'm installing SQL VMs on Azure, and I have 2012, 2014, 2016, 17, and 19 installed with their IP address so I can log in. And then I need to deploy the code, so I have another script that goes and create store procedures that I need to test. And the next one is to test the SQL code. So to test the SQL code, I'm using Pester. So in this case, I have my test that I executed, and if they succeed, they won't show any error. And then once my code is tested or passed the test, I publish the results, and there is a pipeline task to push the results. So you can see a nice report, and I can show it to you how it looks like. So this is my results of the test, and you don't have any errors. You get a trophy, and you can see in this case, I can show pass, so I can see all the tests that pass. And when it fails, you will see where it failed. So I'll show you the one that failed, because it said the one of the tests didn't pass. So it will tell me which one failed, and you can see the error. You can scroll down, and it'll tell you all the ones that failed. And then if I can click on the details, it'll tell you where it failed. And you can see the error said, string split is an invalid object. So you're familiar with SQL Server. So a string split is a function that became available, I think it's on 2016. So if I'm using a function that is only available in 2016 and above, then it will fail on previous versions. That's the reason that 2012 failed and 2014 failed. So in that way, I can automatically test every time I deploy code if it's going to be forward and backward compatible with the different versions that you support. So I'm going to show you the code behind all this. So this is my latest run, but I'm going to show you the previous run. So this run over here. So we publish the test results. I just show you, and then I uninstall my VM. So there will be another script to uninstall the VMs, clean up everything so you don't have to pay for it. So because as you know, on Azure, for the VMs, you have to pay for them. So this test takes about $2 of Azure credits if you have a free account. And then after you finish, it's just do the rest on the code. So I forgot to mention that you also check out the code that I have there. So it runs the git commands. So I will do that every time you want it. So you can schedule it to run, or it can run when you commit a change. So all these task on the pipeline, there are different ways to do it. So you can do the graphical way, where you can add tasks and then you tell what scripts run, or you can use what I call a YAML file. So that's what I used here, and it's called Azure Pipelines YAML. So in this case, the trigger is known. So I'm not triggering every time I commit. I just trigger when I run it. And then, so there are properties that you can set to your pipeline. In this case, I'm telling to not run more than 60 minutes. And if for some reason there's an error, so I at least give them 30 more minutes to clean up. So every time there's an error, it will remove all the resources from Azure, so we economize that way. And then the pool, so in this case, this is my agent. So you on Azure DevOps, you can run agents on Linux or on Windows. In this case, I'm running on Windows. And I have a variable called image offer, where I pass this variable between the tasks. So this is my first task, and I'm using the task called Azure PowerShell. So what it means is the agent will load all the modules to work with Azure already for you. But you can load it in your PC if you wanted to. But that will do it for you. And then that's where I'm going to pass the script. So all it's doing is calling PowerShell scripts. So the first script is to install a SQL VM. The second script is to install the code, and then to test the code, and then to publish the results that I show you, and then finally it will uninstall all the VMs. So far the pipeline, what it's doing is calling all the scripts I already written in PowerShell. And then all the scripts which are here, which are in GitHub, I use Visual Studio Code. So the same scripts that you saw on the pipeline, which is, for example, install SQL VM, is already here. So then I don't know, I just was testing to see if it was working, so I'll delete it. So this is Visual Studio Code. It's easy to work with scripts, and one of them is PowerShell. So here I'll just give you a quick demo of how to run it if you run it on your PC. And so I already have some parameters set to run it. So I'm initialize my parameters. So what I'm doing right now is getting a credential. So I have I use a vault from Azure also, and this is a PowerShell command to get the password from the vault. So in this case, I want to get my password, which is the password which I use to create the VMs. So I can log into those. So I get a password from the vault, and also the steps to create a vault are in the add demo resources script. So now what I'm going to do is to get the images that are available to install on Azure. So in this case, I want SQL 2012 to 2019. So you can have a regex expression like this, where I can tell them I want SQL 2012 all the way to 19. So it will be 1 to 2 and 0 to 9, because those are the numbers for the versions. And then WS is because I want Windows, and I don't want to buy your own license, so I just filter those there. So I can run it over here, providing the regex functions. So I'll run it, all of it, and then I'll show you what it is. We'll run in a few seconds. All right, so to get the image, so if I run this, it's going to filter only the ones that we want. So I will show you, in this case, SQL 2012, 2014, 16, 17, and 19. And there are also, at least for the last versions, you can choose between Windows 2016 or Windows 2019. So on Azure, you have a way to install older versions, but you have to do it programmatically because the portal always installs the latest CU or the latest service pack for the major version. So my next command is to get the SKU, which is new enterprise or standard edition. But in this case, I'm filtering for enterprise because that's what my on-premise setup is. So if I run this command, then I get me the SKUs, all the enterprise ones. And then if I want to get the image, and then I'll filter some of the columns. So now I'm getting all the versions available on the cloud on Azure. So for example, 15, which is 2019, and you will see that the format of the version is a little bit different than what DBAs are used to it, or SQL people that you will expect the CU number or the service pack number, but you will see that is the date where they refresh the image. So, and Microsoft refresh the image every 2 or 3 months, or it depends. For example, for 2019, it came out on 2019 11/04, so November. Then they updated in December, then on January, and then on March. But doesn't mean it is the latest. So March, I think it's CU3, SQL 2019 CU3, and right now it's CU4. So if they added on sometime in May, they may choose to do CU4 or CU5 if it comes out. So, but anyway, so that's the way the versions are organized. And then in this case, I just want the latest version. So this one for 2019, and for 2016, I want also that one was on March. So all the images that were refreshed on March for 2016 and 2019. So that's what I do when I do a group. And then if I run it, so you will see how it looks like. So I'm just using the group object commandlet in PowerShell to group it. So if you're familiar with T-SQL, when you do a group by, and I want the max, right? So in this case, for example, I'm grouping by the major version, which is 15, and give me the max will be this one. So that's what I'm doing. That's what group object is doing. So for 15, this is the latest version. And then I get the name of the offer, and then if it's enterprise or standard. So, and here all what I'm doing is converting this format into an array of hash tables, because that's what I'm going to pass to my template. So I'm going to use a template for creating SQL Server VMs. So I'm going to just run it, and then show you how the results look like. So it looks like this. It's just an array of attribute value pairs. So then I'm going to use a template to create a 5 VMs in parallel. So if you remember on my pipeline here, so I'm going to show you when it's executing the tasks. So here it's doing the install SQL VMs, and you see that it took 11 minutes to install the VMs on the cloud. And the reason I'm using a template is because you can install all the 5 VMs in parallel. So you install 1 VM or 5 VMs, it takes almost the same amount of time, which is 10, 11 minutes to create all of them. And if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, so the template looks like this. So you start with parameters that you want to pass, and there is a section which are the resources. So I guess I can minimize parameters. So then there's a section also for variables. If you want to pass variables, but what we're interested are the resources. So each resource is in JSON format. So you have your attribute and your value here. And in this case, to install a VM, I need to have a network card, a network interface. So I just pass the parameter of how the network interface is going to look like. And then I'll explain what a copy means. But then my next resource will be a public IP address, because I need access to it from my PC. So I need to create a public IP. And then I specify the storage accounts. And then this is a virtual machine I'm going to create. And then if you remember that I'm passing these parameters, which are the version, the name, the SKU, and the offer. So all these parameters that you see down below here are the ones that are passing over here. So that in that way, I telling which versions that I want. So the way you do it in parallel is in each resource you can say copy. So that's the reason that you see after each resource there is a copy command there. And then what I'm doing is, because this is an array, so that number of elements are the number of members of the array, right? So that's the reason I do copy. Oh, where's the other one? So copy and count are the length of the parameters. That means the number of elements here. So in this case, there are 5 VMs I want to do. So we copy the same resources on the template 5 times. And for each time, it's like an array. So for each time, I'm passing the name of each resource. So it's not as complicated as it looked like. It's not. You just need to get used to the syntax of each one of the resources for the template. And then I use a parameter template. So I can pass all the parameters using a parameter file. The type of disk, 4 numbers, the drive. So once I have all that, all I have to do is calling the template with this commandlet called new AC resource group deployment, and it will be deployed. And once it's deployed, so I need to get an IP address. So one of the disadvantages of the template is when you have the copy command, you cannot get the output. So the output, as of now, doesn't support the copy command. So I cannot output the IP address for those 5 VMs. So what I'm doing is also with PowerShell, I'm getting the IP address for each one of them. So in this case, I want the first one, so I'm gonna run all this so you can see how it looks like. So I'm gonna get the IP address for the first one. So to get it from PowerShell, you have to, get the VM, get a network profile, the network interface, the IP configuration, and finally the IP address, right? So I won't go, too much details because it's a lot of code to demo. I want to, get overwhelmed. And then we already got, the IP address, so I can connect to that server and, execute my SQL command. So that's what this part of the code does. And then the next part of the code, what it does on Azure DevOps to output variables, there is a command, special command called this one, set variable. And you just do right host, and it will output this variable, and it will pass it to the next task on the pipeline. So I was here, so I installed another VM. So my next task is this one, install SQL code, and I pass that parameter to the next task. And then the output of the previous parameter is what I showing you on Visual Studio Code. But this one is executed by the agent, so we'll give you similar output. Another thing is that I also get the SQL version. So you can compare that on, for example, the latest version. Here on March 10, the CU that they use to refresh the image is CU3. And then on March 10 for 2016, so CU19 is for 2017, the latest that they have there. So go back to my Visual Studio Code. So now we're going to look at the install SQL code. What it's doing is just have a function that loops through a directory structure to deploy all the objects. So I call it invoke script object. And the scripts, which are also on GitHub. So you start with creating a database. So I have a demo database. And then I have a split function that I need to use according to the version. And then I have some procedures, like a delete, insert. And then as you remember when I showed you the test result output, there was a string split error. So since I already tested and I know that it's not backward compatible, so I need to put on my code, an if statement. If the version is greater than 2016, use a split function, and if not, you have to use a user function that uses the same thing as the split function. So, and then there is select, there is update, and it's the table. Just one table, 4 stored procedures, and 1 function. That's what we deploy with this script. install SQL code. Yeah, I won't go into the details into that one to save some time. So I can spend more time on the next task, which is testing the code. So the next script that the pipeline calls is this one, which is test code. And this one is just a wrapper to call invoke pester. So the module for pester is called pester. So you just install the module, and then I call this script, and then my output is an XML output, which DevOps will take it and read it. So now this is what I'm going to explain is how to test code with Pester. So Pester is a testing framework for PowerShell. And since PowerShell can interact with different resources like databases, then that means you can also use Pester to test database code. So I have a function called test procedure because I want to test the procedures, and I pass some parameters. Now, the way Pester works is, if you're familiar with PowerShell, describe is not used normally in PowerShell, but if you're going to use Pester, then there is a new statement called describe, which is the start of your test. So every test needs to start with describe. And in this case, I just pass in the version, and then I do the other element for testing code is the it. So the it statement is you put the name of the test, and then what are you comparing? So, and most of the comparisons are this way. So the left side is your actual result, and the right side is what it should be. So that's the way you test code. For example, I'm testing here the number of rows that I got on my result and what it should be compared to what is expected. So that is what this test is about. It's just comparing my actual result with what I expect. And then, so where do I put those? So I have a hash table where I put every procedure or every query that I want to test. And for example, this store procedure is inserting these rows and with these variables on this database. And because it's an insert, I don't expect any rows back, so it's 0. And then you can test for the state that is before, and what's the result that it should have. So I have all my tests here on in a hash table, on a PowerShell hash table, which I'll pass to this function. So for example, I'll initialize some of the variables instead of going through a loop. And let's see. Okay, so now I'll run it so to see how it looks like. So I'll run the describe format. So describing my test. Usually doesn't take that long unless I write something. Found inaccessible. Let's see. So I think when I run this, I don't remember if I got the credentials. So I'm gonna run. I got a credential. Let's see. Let's check. So I did get a credential, network, connection to SQL Server. So do I get it right? IP address. So this is the IP address. Mm, 51, 141, 65. Yeah. All right. For some reason, okay, now connect. All right. Let's get the credential again, just in case. Credential. Oh, I know why. Because I didn't highlight the IP address. All right, so now I get the IP address. So it's failing to connect to SQL Server, and that's in the function that that I show you, which is the describe part. So I have to execute it. So result, which is this one. So I'm using invoke SQL command to execute it. And now if I run this, I should be able to connect. Or maybe not. Now what is well, I need to get a query. Maybe initialize a query. All right, let's try this way. All right, so now it works. So I initialize some more variables. So the describe part is what it's describing. And then each one of the tests is here. So first I check for errors, and there is no errors. But the number of rows in the output, it should be 3. So I expect it to be 3, but I got 2. So that's the reason it showed me that it fell. So, and then I test for the column names and the values, and then I'll deep dive of each one of these ones. So here, I'm just passing the parameters to run the invoke SQL command. So the IP address, the database, and my credential. And then this one was what I was trying to run earlier, but I didn't initialize the parameters, so I'll run it now. But then that's the reason it didn't like it. But then, so when I check for errors, I say it errors. I compare the result with what it should be, and if it's not null, you give me errors, and then this is the expected rows. So the reason it fell on the test is because I put 3. So let's say if I put 2, because I only get 2, so I initialize this again. And then if I run my test again, so here, expected output value to be greater than 2, but got 2. Because I use greater than, not equal. So now I run it. Now all the tests should pass. Okay, so now it's all green. They all pass. But so that's the way you run tests with Pester, with SQL Server. I don't know if there's any questions so far.
No. Yeah, I don't see any questions on the chat right now. If
Okay.
anyone has questions, they can just post on the chat and let us know.
Yeah, it's a lot of code to demo. So you're not familiar with PowerShell. It's a little bit difficult to grasp all the commands, but that's the way you automate a test with PowerShell. And again, everything is on GitHub, so you can download the code and test it yourself and play around. And the same way I'm doing it here. So you just run part of the code and see what errors did you get, and you can try to fix them. So let's see what I was going to do. Oh yeah, so after the testing the code, the next one is to publish the results. And let's see, I go back to my pipeline. So we already did the test code, and this is the result of running all the tests. All my inserts, my deletes, creating my table and everything on each version. So automatically it's testing on each version. So you can see on the describing that the reason I put part of the version. So I'm testing on 2019, I'm testing on 2017, and testing on 2016, and so on. So after that, I publish the test results on the task, which we already seen. And in this case, I didn't delete the VMs because I want to keep them to demo. So, but on this one, I am uninstalling all the VMs, so which is the next task over here. So to uninstall the VMs, there are different ways to do it. So one is to drop the resource group, and then everything that was inside the resource group, everything gets deleted. But in my case, I don't delete it. I'm not deleting the resource group. I keep the resource group. So when I create my objects, all of them has a tag name. So I'm just deleting the resources by tag. That's the reason I start with, let's see, I need to move this thing over here. So I delete the virtual machines first, then the disk, then a network interface, and the IP address, and the storage accounts. So all that is executed through this one, which is the same as this script. And this is what is on my pipeline, just to recap. So that pipeline is on the YAML format, which is this one. So this is my last task on the pipeline. So another thing to mention is that you can add conditions in your pipeline. So on this particular one, it said enable false because I didn't want to drop my VMs. But when it's enabled, it will run with this condition. It says succeed or fail. So whatever task was previous to that, even if it failed, it will drop everything. So we'll clean up everything, so you don't keep paying for it. So, and that's the reason it also has a parameter called cancel timeout in minutes, because when it fails, it at least takes 10 minutes to drop everything. So I give it 20 more minutes just in case. So we'll drop everything, and Let's look at one of the pipelines that is dropping it to see how long it takes. This one over here. So this one takes 16 minutes. So it took about 9 minutes to install and took 16 minutes to uninstall everything. And then, so this is how the pipeline is, and then I was going to show you that on GitHub also has a, so all the scripts that I show you are in GitHub, and for example, to uninstall the VMs, but then there's also, once you finish, you can also run this one that is how to drop everything. So here I'm using the Azure client. So I'm deleting my service principal, I'm deleting my project and everything. So you get the script to add the demo resources and the script to remove the demo resources. You need to do your cleanup. And then all the other scripts are here. Let's see what else. And then, so on DevOps, there is other things that you can do. So I only show you, the repo, where is similar to GitHub, a Git repository. But this one is an Azure Git. But also you can do, the pipelines I already show you. But also you can have test plans, artifacts, and then if you are in you also use Visual Studio Teams. You can also coordinate the work, the DevOps task or tickets, and you can have boards and backlogs and all these things that you can use. But on this demo, I only use the repo and the pipeline. But yeah, so that's all I have, just to show you, that everything that you can automate with PowerShell is not. Yeah, I didn't want to show all the details to not overwhelm you with all the code, but just to give you an overview of how DevOps works with PowerShell and Azure, and hope you like it and you want to learn more.
Yeah, so I think we can open the floor for any questions. If you have any questions, this will be the best time to throw it. If you are curious, if you want to reuse this and run your own test on your own code, you just need to modify the pro cache table and the test SQL code and test SQL code pester, right? Then you can plug in whatever you have on your own, whatever the procedures you want to test. Let's see. Anyone else has any question? Pretty quiet bunch.
Probably fall asleep with too much PowerShell code.
Yeah, it's a nice use of Pester. I've always wanted to see how Pester works, so that's great. Great way to use Pester. Anyone else has any questions? Going once?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So I want to thank Paul for a very technical session. And it's a great. Oh yeah. So everyone is just saying thanks.
Yeah.
yeah, if you are interested in DevOps, it's a very good demo. So yeah, so guys, if you can kindly fill up the evaluation. I think I can put the link on the chat. And then we don't have any schedule yet for the next one, but we'll definitely keep everyone informed.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks all
Okay.
for a great
Everyone.